All right, we are live on a Saturday afternoon here talking about the Patriots have made a trade for a big-time stud, quote-unquote stud receiver, DeVante Parker coming over from Miami. The Patriots send a third-round pick in 2023, and it looks like they're getting a fifth-round pick in 2022 back, although Rep Report reported 2023, but I'm pretty sure it's 2022 fifth-round pick coming back with Parker for the Patriots. So, look, well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Brian, I know you're not as high on it as other people. By the way, Brian is with me today. We got a little special guest today here talking about it. Look, I mean, I think the Patriots wanted a big, large guy who can show that he can play in the NFL. Parker has done that. Not consistently, but he has shown that he can at times take over games like he did in 2019 against the Patriots, against Stephon Gilmore, who won Defensive Player of the Year that year, and had a great game. But then he's also shown times where he is hurt for long extended periods of time, or where he disappears and has one catch for 5 yards against the Patriots. So, I think it's the idea of the trade is good. I don't know if I don't know. I don't know how good it really is.
Yeah, so like the quotes that are being thrown out there a lot. I mean, Phil Perry from NBC threw out the transcripts from before the Week 1 game in 2020, and Bill's quote is, "He's a big athlete that runs well. He's got a very good skill set. He's got good hands, good run after the catch ability, good quickness for his size. Presents a lot of problems on deep balls. Big target at the end of routes, stuff like that."
Right.
That is fine, but that was 100 years ago. Like that. I mean, if you're quoting from before Week 1 in 2020, that means that the latest tape you have is 2019. And my God, was that a long time ago?
Right.
He is 29 now. He's going on 30. He'll be 30 next year? Question mark. We'll have to check it. Yeah, he'll be. I think he just turned 29. And injury riddled season last year. He was healthy the year before. It's very clear that Tua has impacted him, and his agent Jimmy Gould, Parker's agent Jimmy Gould, is over the moon about getting him into Foxborough and getting him out of that system, getting him away from what it sounds like, getting him away from Tua. The most production we saw with from DeVante last year was with I believe it was with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Or was that last year? Am I thinking? Do I have my years?
2 years ago. 2 years ago. 2020.
2 years ago. 2020. See, that's how long ago that quote was.
Right. Right.
So it's a nice change of scenery for Parker. They're going to have to figure out the money. But I was just looking at his 2021 tape after the trade was released, and man, it's not good. It's not good, Pat.
That Week 17 clip that you posted was like, whoa, he looked really slow, really bad.
I went right to it. Like 13 targets, 4 catches. I'm like, all right, there's going to be some Tua action involved there. Like, that's
right.
And some of the targets were Tua. But like, man, they were down in the game too. So it was one of those, a lot of the drives were them trying to go against soft zone coverage. And it's one game. And right. I try not to get too into one game, but like, man, there was like effort issues, what appeared to be effort issues. There was miscommunication all over the place. There was at least 2 times I saw where he ran the wrong route. And it was it had to have been him. He was the only culprit on the play, who it could have been. And like stuff like that, like you could tell he was an unmotivated, unhappy player there. So we'll see what we get.
Well, that's the thing.
See what the money is too.
Yeah, so that's the thing for me, and I was just looking up the money, but that's really the issue for me, is that he's upset. He didn't want to be there in Miami. Hated playing with Tua, and felt like he got passed over kind of by Waddle, who comes in. Of course, Tyreek Hill comes in now. They're going in a different direction, right?
They're regime change,
right? And a regime change.
They're bringing in Mike McDaniel,
right, exactly. And so, just so we're here, DeVante Parker, it says he has a 5.5 or 5.65 base salary, and then $500,000 per game roster bonuses for 2022, and then a 5.7 base salary, $500K in per game roster bonuses for 2023. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know what the cap hit's going to look like. I would assume the cap hit's not going to be super high.
Well, that would be if they didn't do anything to his cap hit, they wouldn't be able to enact the trade because the Patriots don't have the cap space to absorb it. You have to have the cap space at the time of the trade. You can't do the contract first and then the trade. Because he's not technically on your team yet. So you have to do it, and then you can do the restructure or however you want to rework that. But so they have to have either done a maneuver to create more cap space before the trade that we haven't heard of yet, or something was done.
Right.
So
with the player, and that wouldn't be surprising because Parker, hasn't really done anything. And again, he's been hurt, he's been in and out, he's been extremely inconsistent his whole career. This is he's been up and down his whole career. And they said, "Oh, we're finally going to get to see him." And it's like, nah, okay, he had 40 catches last year, like fine, but he just wasn't. He was never went above, went above and beyond, right? And so that's kind of the thing for me. Now, the draft pick is like 158, I believe. Is the pick that they would be getting back for him this year. So it looks like a 3rd round pick next year for Parker and a 5th round pick this year. So you're getting that 5th round pick this year. I don't know. I mean, does it matter? 5th round pick's a 5th round pick. It's not like going to be this amazing pick or anything.
We know what Bill does with 5th round picks. That's going to be a kicker. That's going to be a punter. That's going to be a long snapper, a gunner. That's a special teamer.
Which it could be, and you're probably right. But at the end of the day, I just look at it and think, like, okay, here we are. You have a guy that's has the potential, quote unquote, to be a number 1 guy, and everyone's talking about get Mac that guy, right? And can DeVante Parker be that guy? I don't necessarily think so. But if you throw him at the X, and what this does too, people talk about Nelson Agholor. I know you're very high on Agholor as well, but this helps Nelson Agholor a lot, I think, because it takes him out of that X role and allows him to be in that Z role or even in the slot. So I think instead of now Agholor playing outside the numbers, he can come inside the numbers even sometimes and use his speed to win in other places. And I think that is helpful. And listen, I mean, the only other option they had at X was N'Keal Harry. So DeVante Parker is better than N'Keal Harry. I mean, we can. We can
say that. We can say that all we want, but when you look at the resources and how and what you're getting from each guy, and I say this with, man, I'm glad I'm not tweeting this. Is he like? Is $5 million DeVante Parker, who's not going to be a de facto tight end with blocking? I mean, we know what N'Keal brings to that X role. He does everything you want in that X role, except be good at receiver.
Right.
So, but that's traditionally what they want out of that role. Like nobody has worked that role well in this offense since Randy Moss, and like Brandon Lloyd-ish kind of guys, like we saw it with Josh Gordon. Them trying, it's
right. Brandon LaFell, I thought was pretty good.
Action. Yeah, Brandon LaFell, but it's all backside play action, slants, curls. Like Demir Bird was in the X for the 1 year he was here, and that was like their go-to shot play in 2019 or 2020 with Cam. When they needed a first down or they needed 8 yards or some kind of chunk play, it was let's get into heavy and let's get Demir out there, split out to the field, and let's get him ISO'd on a corner and let's run the comebacker. Let's run the boot, like either naked boot or just a quick play action comebacker. And that was all it was. That's all the X has been. And can DeVante Parker do that? Yeah. One thing I love about it, though, I will say, is that I think the most underrated part of Mac's game is his touch on the deep ball. I think he throws a beautiful deep ball. In structure plays, awesome deep ball thrower. And I think he'll be good enough to access that part of DeVante and those back shoulder fades and just get some opportunities for that, because I mean, he's not going to give you much else. That's just not where he's at anymore in his career.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't have the speed. He never really was super fast anyways. So, you're talking about a guy who's 29, and by the way, his birthday is in January, so he is going to be 29 all year. And so, you look at it and just say, okay, guy who's more than likely on the back end of his pro career, but he can still win with his body. I mean, the last clip in the 29 in the last week 17 clip that you showed, he ran a nice little comeback route. Was open, got open on the comeback route. Tua waited, and then he finally threw it. And then Parker had to wrestle the D-back for it, but won the wrestling match and picked up a first down. And so, like, was it a great? No, it wasn't great, but like he got separation, a little bit of separation. And then when it came down to making a contested catch, he made that contested catch. So are there things about him that aren't great? Yeah, but like if he can make those contested catches, like actually make them, like N'Keal Harry supposedly can make them, he can't really make them. If he can actually make those catches, then it's a guy that, you can look at it and say, okay, at least we have some faith in giving him the ball in those situations, right? And maybe he can't create the most separation like he could when he was, 22 coming out of college. But, we feel that he's at least comfortable making those in high leverage situations or in high traffic situations. He can come down with the ball.
Yeah, it's going to be all ball skill stuff. It's going to be all red zone, deep ball. Like, again, he'll be running the comebackers. He'll be on the backside slants, because his hands are great, and he's just a monster. It's like a Des Bryant type signing, like that late career Des Bryant-ish type that we were looking at when he was on the market a few years ago, and we had the Chris Hogan conversation. Right. Yeah. But what he'll allow Mac to do is finally work a little bit better out of structure. Hopefully, that's the hope. I'm sure behind the signing is like N'Keal. With the one thing with N'Keal is, man, when there was a ball, like a scramble drill, non-existent, nothing, no instinct, no feel, just no cohesion with Mac, and just disaster. And we saw it with Cam too in 2020. Just that's where Cam wanted to make plays and wanted to make things happen, and like specifically in that 49ers game where he threw the picks of that whole first half, it was just like trying to make things happen out of structure, and nobody out there to make things happen. No safety valve, nobody working with him. DeVante Parker's really good in that aspect, so hopefully we see some chunk plays from that. Otherwise, man, they are still so slow. This offense is still going to be slow, and it's going to be very slow.
I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, and I think what it allows you to do, in my opinion, and again, is that you have at least a competent wide receiver out there where you feel like, okay, we can get the ball to this guy and he can actually do the job, right? And he's not great. He's not a great player, but he's out there and he's reliable. And of course, like, he's been hurt a million times, so maybe he's not super reliable. But like, I look at Jacoby Myers, I think Myers is the perfect example of that. Is he a great player? No. Can he separate against man coverage very well? No. Is he like a guy that you want to be like a number one or a number two receiver on your team? No. But he's at least a guy that can go out there and catch the ball. And like, you're like, okay, I know if I go into Sunday with this guy on the roster, at least we can be competitive at least, or at least competent at the position. We won't be great, but at least we can be competent. And it gives us a floor. It raises, to me, the Parker trade raises the floor of the offense a bit, because you're like, all right, we have a competent player that can play here. Is he going to be like a top 5 or 10 receiver in the league? No, of course not. But he at least allows us to actually play that a little bit. And Oliver mentioned the red zone. I think the red zone too, like, he could be a guy, ball skills guy, like he could be a guy that can make a play on the ball in the red zone, right? Hunter Henry, and he says it too, like Hunter Henry was the only guy they had last year, right? And so like,
yeah,
if you can add something to that, we'll see what happens. So I don't know, maybe they do a restructure or whatever to get him in. But what I do want to say, and I think you pointed out on Twitter, which I think is totally true, this can't be it, right? This cannot be it. We're not done here, right? Like, I think it raises the floor, which is good. It gives you a competent veteran player, which is good. But that is all for naught if you don't draft a wide receiver. You have to draft a wide receiver. And whether that's Mechie, who I love, or Sky Moore, who I also like, there's some guys that, whether it's Olave, who's Keegan's guy, like whoever it is, right? You got to bring somebody else in. And listen, are they going to draft Slade Bolden? Almost 100% they're going to draft Slade Bolden in the 7th round. Great, fine. That can't be the only guy they got to bring in.
Right.
They got to draft a guy in the first or second round. Take a guy who is, my last mock, I had them trading back and drafting George Pickens in the second. Like a guy like that, I would love because
I would love that.
Brings them speed. And the thing is that he has the same things that Parker has, but he ran a 4.4. He's fast, so yeah, great. He can catch the ball in traffic, but he also has speed, which is something Parker doesn't have, right? So he can learn maybe parts of those games. If you draft a guy who's similar to Parker, like a Pickens, right, who's a similar player, he can teach him some of those intricacies of his game, and then Pickens can elevate it because he has that extra speed, right? And so, that to me is like, hey, listen, you want to raise the floor? Perfect. That's great. You make yourself a little bit more competent. You have a guy who's a veteran who, at the very least, can kind of teach the young guys around him. But you can't just be like, okay, we're good. No. You have to go out and draft a guy as well who can be an elite level player, perhaps this year or next year or whatever moving forward, because that to me is the big thing.
So here's the problem. Here's what the problem of the trade. The trade itself brings on the issue of, well, they're telling us something about what they think of this wide receiver class in terms of where their resources, where their draft capital is, and where they think guys are going, and what guys they want on this roster. What guys are on this super small board we hear about all the time, how small their draft board is. There's like 4 guys on this board, and if they're not there, we got to trade them out. It's telling me that they're looking at pick 21 and saying Garrett Wilson's gone, Chris Olave probably gone, and X guy that we like probably gone, Treylon Burks maybe, who knows, and we don't like we don't like this day 2. We don't like the George Pickens guy. We don't like any of this section of the draft. Hopefully these guys are here on day 3. Maybe we'll grab them in like a Malcolm Mitchell type deal, like that range. That's what this move tells me, is that they don't like where they're positioned for this class. And yes, like I want them desperately to get into. No, it's no longer Oliver. The draft board is no longer Dax Hill because we have officially steamed him up too much. He's too popular and everybody wants him too much. He is no longer a possibility. It cannot happen now.
And he's going to go like late in the second round, and we're going to be like, "What the hell are you doing?" Yeah.
And so basically, I look at it like, man, they like the guys they have in the room. They want to deploy them better, but now there's a numbers problem if you add a rookie too. And so like I look at, you bring him in, and it means one of 2 things on the pro personnel side. It means you don't like what you saw from Nelson Agholor, or you are waiting and seeing on Jacoby and Kendrick Bourne, and you can't have them all in the field. There's no point of there's no point of having Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne on the field at the same time.
Right.
They're like run them both in this. They're both slot guys. Kendrick Bourne is clearly the better player. They've got Jacoby back on this cheap deal. And then you bring in a DeVante Parker who's going to make the team, and Nelson Aguilar's tough to move. I mean, that contract is what it is. But like, I'm very curious if this is what the move is going to be as far as on-field personnel in 2022 and like personnel packages when you have DeVante Parker now.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, Allie here says, he wouldn't be surprised with Watson at 54. I personally don't think Watson is a guy that New England wants to target. I just don't think he's – I don't know if he's the type of guy they want. I do wonder, do they go at – like, I mean, it's not a bad question because you look at it and say, okay, they have DeVante Parker, they have Nelson Agholor, they have Jacoby Myers, they have Kendrick Bourne. That's 4 guys right there who – those 4 guys are on the roster. Like those guys are here. They're on the roster. They're playing this year. That's happening. Like, so now if you're drafting a guy,
Jacoby can be cut, and bam, you've got $4 million in cap space.
Which is true. That's true.
Just like that.
But I think they like what Jacoby brings I think they like a lot what Jacoby brings.
Of course they do.
And so
and everybody loves Jacoby except for me.
right.
So of course they do. And he's the most cerebral guy in the room, and he knows the system better than anybody, and he's all the grit stuff.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is he can be cutting $4 million or on your books now.
Right. No, which is true. Yeah. Allie's asking about the size and speed with Watson. I just think Watson is a limited receiver. And again, it's North Dakota. Who knows if he plays differently once he gets in the league. I just think he doesn't have the route tree that some of the other guys have, which is kind of the way I look at it, is that he's not necessarily he's not a refined route runner necessarily. He's not a finished product, put it that way. And I don't know if they're going to draft a guy that high who basically just off his combine workouts. I mean, he did well. He looked good in Mobile too, but I don't know. And I might be totally wrong with that. I just think I've heard that from multiple people that he's not necessarily the guy that they want. But nevertheless,
Sky Moore.
I love Sky Moore. I love Sky Moore. I love Sky Moore. I'm a big Sky Moore guy. I love John Mechie, the idea of him coming from Alabama and playing with. Mechie, yeah. But again, who knows? I just think, to me, I mean, they're not drafting someone at 21. I think you look at it and say there's no way they're drafting a wide receiver 21. And I think that I would have been shocked if they had done it anyways. I think this kind of just solidifies that it's not going to happen, right? But I think there's still an opportunity to trade back, right? And Barth mentioned this when he was on with us. If those quarterbacks drop and you're sitting at 21 and there's a quarterback on the board, and Detroit's at 32 and needs a quarterback, and they're like, all right, we'll send you 32 and 33 to move up to draft a quarterback. You take that in a heartbeat, and now you've moved back to 32, and you have 32 and 33, and now you can either trade back again with 32, or you can, kind of do whatever. And Oliver says Elam or Booth. Elam, I don't think is the guy, but either way. But
Booth, Booth, I love Booth, but when you're talking core muscle surgery,
it's scary.
I love how fluid of an athlete. I think he's the prototype Belichick guy, right?
Right.
But trade everything you have and get Jordan Davis, and just let us love on Jordan Davis for the rest of our lives.
I'm telling you,
have another Vince Wilfork.
I'm just telling you, I don't think it's crazy to think he drops to 21. I really don't. I really do not think it's crazy to think he drops to 21, because
you got to dodge some bullets, and with the receivers, if there's a run on receivers, then that helps you too.
Right. And if some of the quarterbacks go, 3 quarterbacks go in the top 20, and then you got some wide receivers, and you got the corners that are going to go, and you got the tackles and the edge defenders that are going to go. Now you got a guy who had the third most snaps, and Austin Gale talked about this when he was on with us. He had the third most snaps out of interior defensive linemen on Georgia, not just on passing downs, on first and second downs. He had the third most snaps out of guys. So I think there are going to be people that are going to question, can he play enough snaps to justify picking him at 15 overall? And look, Philly's got 15, 16, and 19. They're probably going to draft him at some point, right? But
unfortunately, yes.
That's probably going to happen, but maybe not. They brought back Fletcher Cox. You never know. But anyways, we're getting too far in the weeds here. But
now it's a draft pod.
Yeah, I know. But I do think.
But that's the dominoes, right? That's how this works. One thing happens, and there's a whole mess of other things that have to fall into place now because of one big move that you make.
Right.
And it's just so. My last question for you about this.
Yes.
DeVante Parker move. Is it a little desperate?
I don't think so. You know what? To me,
it's Max. We're going into Max second year. Let's get some names out.
Right.
Bill would never go for a name guy. He obviously clearly likes the player, but is it desperate?
I don't think so. Here's my thing, right? Here's the thing for me. I think if you had gone out and traded a first round pick for DK Metcalf, that would have been desperate, right? That would have been what are we doing, right?
Or $15 million a year for Robert Woods,
right? That's what I mean. That's desperation. To me, this is exactly what the Patriots do. They sit around waiting. They have a guy they like in Parker in Miami, and they say, hey, shoot, I mean, you just signed Tyreek Hill for a buttload of money. You have Jalen Waddle. You just signed Mike Gesicki back. Do you really need DeVante Parker? Yeah, we'll trade you for it. We'll take him off your hands for you. And yeah, sure, we'll give up a third round pick next year. but you'll give us a 5th-round pick this year in a draft that's incredibly deep, and and then we'll get Parker, and he's not signed for 1 year; he's signed for 2 years. So that to me is kind of where it's going to. I understand where you're coming from, and I do think some people could theoretically look at this and think maybe it was a little bit of a panic decision because they have to get another guy in here. And like I said, I like the idea that they raise the floor of where they are. But again, there's a lot of question marks. Is he going to be on the field? Is he going to be, like that? Those are those things that we don't know the answer to. And again, and someone mentioned the Gilmore game again, and that's 2019. That's 3 years ago, right? So like, that's 3 years ago. Now he finished that season with like back-to-back 100-yard games, and I think 3 out of the last 5 games were 100-yard games for him. Like he played really well that time, but like I just don't. I don't know. Now,
it's a long time ago, man.
That's the thing. So I do think, though, that it allows them to raise the floor. I think, to me, I almost look at it the opposite the way that you do. I think that this allows them to bring in a rookie easier because if that rookie comes in and even if he's a high draft pick, if that rookie comes in and he's not ready yet, Parker's already in front of him. And you say, hey, look, kid.
Absolutely.
And then and then there's less pressure on that guy if you have Parker in front of him. And so Patrick mentioned James Williams.
Yeah, James. That's not a Bill guy, in my opinion.
No, it is. And it's never going to happen.
Speed,
Someone's going to draft him.
Too dynamic of an athlete, too much speed. But no, there are route tree issues and there's rumors and things out there you hear. You don't know how much to put on things, right. But like it doesn't sound like he's going to be a Patriot.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, I say that on a podcast and then that is exactly how things work.
Right.
Because that is the universe that we live in.
Exactly.
But
so
it's nice to see. It's nice to see them doing things and trying to work the values, doing the same old, it's a value move, right? There's a guy there's some meat on the bone on a player. They think there's some meat on the bone of a player that they can get on a pick swap, taking on a pretty modest contract because so much of his money was in signing bonus, and they can still manipulate it a little bit if they want to once they get him on the roster. So we'll see. Yeah. But another guy that keeps popping into my head now is Jonnu Smith. So like, you've got a lot of guys that you want to try to get on the field and get the football to in different ways. And, it's feeling a little like, now it's looking a little more 12 personnel. Like they are going to go with the 12 personnel this year.
I think they should.
DeVante on the backside of it.
Yes, I think they should. And I think, I think Nikhil, what I thought they were going to do with Jonnu last year, I don't know why I said Nikhil. Oh, someone just said something about Nikhil. What I thought they should have done last year with Jonnu was, you throw him in and he's your gadget guy. You throw screens and you throw quick passes and you run him out of the backfield. And that's what I thought they should have done with Jonnu last year.
Well, Josh tried it, and he was in the opening script of every game, and it was beautiful.
Yeah,
and then it would be non-existent.
Yeah, and so I don't know what it is, but I'm hoping that he's there. And look, do they need a fullback? Probably. I mean, it'd be nice to have like a downhill running fullback who runs people over, but at the same time, like I don't know, I kind of feel like if you have a dynamic athlete coming out of the backfield, that might be a little bit more important. So,
well, the problem was. Is they would come out with Jonnu, try to work him into the script. They would have a little success. The drive would stall somehow, and they would punt, and then they wouldn't go back to it. And they couldn't go back to it because no matter what, they couldn't get defenses to match base personnel against 12 personnel. They would get matched in nickel, and so they wouldn't have that advantage against bigger linebackers. Right. And Jonnu's on a safety. There's too many safeties on the field,
right?
And they couldn't get the advantage, but they weren't successful enough. They were having success obviously with the run game, and so they would bring on all year long Mike Onwenu when he came back at 6th offensive lineman,
right?
Jakob Johnson in the backfield, get as big and nasty and heavy as they could, super condensed sets, and then the defense would finally match with base personnel, and then it's like, okay, now we can take our play action shot.
Right.
Come on, Nelson, get it for us. And it was like so obvious and scripted, and it was just like, if they're not going to honor base personnel, they're not going to match your 12 personnel with base personnel. Stop going out there in 12 and don't be so dedicated to trying to get that matchup. Just go out and freaking nickel and match their passing coverage strength with some passing strength.
Yeah.
But in Mac's rookie year, we don't know how much. I mean, clearly they were very conservative all year with everything they did last year. Hopefully, like the reins are taken off, and hopefully DeVante Parker gives them a little bit more of, like, they feel that they can call more shots, more shot plays.
Exactly. Because that's the hope.
And you and I talked about it. The best game plan they ran last year was week 3 of the preseason when Mac was in, running quick game, running no huddle, shotgun, moving guys around.
That's what he's comfortable with.
It was beautiful. It was awesome watching him work in rhythm and getting the ball out quickly and taking shots and throwing beautiful deep balls. And then that just didn't happen all year.
Yeah.
So
I think at a certain point, let him open it up. And he's going to make mistakes. Like, they try to limit his mistakes. I get it. But he's a confident guy. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to screw up. It's going to happen. But, like, you see how he responds to adversity. I mean, I always come back to play the game. I always come back to is the Dallas game, where he throws a bad pick six. You're winning the game. He throws a terrible pick six, and then he comes back the very next play, throws it to the same receiver, covered by the same corner, and the safety screws up the play, and it ends up being a touchdown. But even if the safety makes a good play on that, Bourne still catches that for a 30-yard gain. Like, that's the type of thing for me where I look at it and just say, that's what he does. This is what he does. It's what he's done all year, because I went to the first padded practice and I went out there and said, Mac sucks. He's not ready. He the speed of the game's too big for him. And then after that day, he had like the 3 best days he had in camp, because he responds to adversity well. He's done that he did that all year last year, starting in training camp. So to me,
you bring up
get him out there,
game, man. It's like he was dealing on third downs. He was. I mean, he had the pick six. It was bad, but it wasn't really his fault, if I remember correctly, right? Like, it was kind of his fault.
A little bit of both, yeah. Not a great throw, not a great route. A little bit of both, yeah.
And then, but he was nails all game.
Yeah,
he was nails, and then they decide to punt from the 45-yard line and give the ball to Dak, and it's like,
you knew it was going to happen. Yeah.
You knew it was going to happen. It took, what would it take, like 2 plays? Was it two or 3 plays?
Yeah, 2 or 3, yeah.
Can't be having that this year, man. It's year 2. Let's go. Especially in this division now. I know. Like, man, I mean, they got swept by the only the 2 competitors in the division last year. Oh, no, they didn't get swept. I'm sorry. They beat the Bills.
They beat Buffalo, right.
Mac in the scuba suit. That's right.
Yeah.
But man.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, I'm a little excited now that we're just talking Patriots football.
That's it. And we're doing stuff. We're doing stuff, which is nice. So
do something.
Anyways, all right. I gotta run. I gotta go pick up my dog from the groomer. But this has been fun. We appreciate you guys coming through as always. We gotta do some mock draft stuff and talk about some players in the draft. And we will be doing, Brian, I think we'll be there. We will be doing a live reaction during the first night of the draft on Thursday night, April 28th, I believe is the date. We'll be live. The entire first round of the draft is going to be
certainly there is no history of the show last year left on the internet, right? Surely that is gone.
That was unbelievable. And Allie, I will work on that big board. I haven't done one yet, but I will work on that big board. If there's some interest, I will release a big board, because I'm down for it. I'm down for it. There are some guys that are very high on. So we'll see. The problem is I haven't really looked at the top guys, because it's like, well, I'm not even looking at those guys. Like, I've watched 0 snaps of Kayvon Thibodeau, because he's going to go in the top 5. I don't care. Like, what that guy doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? So maybe I'll do something just on Patriots guys, right? Guys that I want the Patriots to draft. So anyways, all right. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming through, Brian. Appreciate you, sir. And we'll see you guys soon.